24 hours.
Side and in terms of people-to-people relations in order to build an Indo-Pacific region that is both secure and prosperous. One of the areas that the two leaders touched on was, of course, Africa, because we are beginning to have cooperation trilaterally between India, Japan and African countries. And in this regard, Prime Minister Abe mentioned specifically that during his visit to India, we will have further discussions in this regard. Finally, there was a brief discussion on the RCEP, the Regional Cooperation, Economic Cooperation Agreement that is being negotiated by the 16 countries, including the 10 countries of ASEAN. Both sides gave their perspective on the matter. Prime Minister mentioned in particular that we have some issues of interest both in trade in goods and trade in services, and that this should be kept in mind when any regional trading arrangement is made, so that there is a comfort level on all sides for this agreement. This was followed by a very, very warm meeting with the Prime Minister of Malaysia. As you will recall, our Prime Minister was among the earliest leaders who called on him in Kuala Lumpur soon after his election. And Prime Minister, in his meeting today with Prime Minister Mahathir, described Prime Minister Mahathir's election as a very historic one, and said that India was looking forward to working together with Malaysia. A lot of the discussion took place on bilateral matters. Prime Minister Mahathir acknowledged that there was a growing trade between the two countries, but that Malaysia had a surplus in trade. And he assured the Prime Minister that while we should continue to grow this trade, Malaysia is looking at ways in which we can balance the trade as well. In that context, he also mentioned that Malaysia would also consider importing more from India, so that India's exports to Malaysia grow. There was some discussion on the recent internal developments in the country, and in this regard, Prime Minister explained to the Prime Minister of Malaysia the rationale behind the reorganization of the state of Jammu and Kashmir in terms of both giving effective governance and in terms of delivering socio-economic justice. And in that context, the two leaders discussed the focus was on terrorism, on efforts by both sides to on how to cope with the growing global terror. Prime Minister of Malaysia, in fact, acknowledged that this is now a global problem, and he unequivocally expressed that terrorism is in any form is something that Malaysia is against. There was also a brief discussion between the two leaders on some of the other international issues. But broadly, given the paucity of time, there could not have been any detailed discussion. Finally, the Prime Minister called on the Mongolian President just a short while ago. Again, it was a very, very warm conversation. The Mongolian President is slated to come on a state visit to India, in fact, later this month. In that context, a number of outcomes were discussed, a number of projects on which there is ongoing work, particularly the assistance we are giving in building a major oil refinery to meet Mongolia's energy needs through a line of credit was discussed. A number of people-to-people issues were discussed, including culture, the spiritual connection. The President of Mongolia specifically said he looked forward to his visit to Bodh Gaya in addition to Delhi as well as to Bangalore. And finally, there was some discussion between the two leaders on how to mitigate the impact of smog in Ulaanbaatar. And in that regard, the President of Ulaanbaatar spoke of the success that India is having in mitigating the pollution due to stubble burning of wheat in the winter months. So overall, I would say that these were three very, very productive, very good meetings. These were in the margins of the main event, which is the Eastern Economic Forum, which is due to commence shortly. And we certainly are quite pleased with all these three meetings, and we leave Vladivostok with a sense that in all three cases, these are all strategic partners of ours, we are in a good place with all of them.
Thank you, sir. We just have time maybe for one or two questions. Sudhakar?
सर दो छोटे छोटे सवाल. एक तो पहला अफ्रीका में जापान के साथ किस तरह की साझेदारी की आप लोग बात कर रहे हैं, और दूसरा मलेशिया में जाकिर नाइक हमको पता है जाकिर नाइक के एक्स्ट्राडिशन के लिए भारत लगातार कोशिश कर रहा है, तो उस मुद्दे पर बात हुई क्या?
थैंक यू। आपका सवाल है? ठीक है,
अच्छा,
thank you.
जहाँ तक अफ्रीका की बात है, वहाँ तो हम जापान के साथ ऑलरेडी भागीदारी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन प्राइम मिनिस्टर आबे ने ये कहा कि जब वो भारत की यात्रा पे आएंगे तो कुछ और देश हैं अफ्रीका में जहां भारत और जापान इकट्ठा काम कर सकते हैं। तो उस मामले में अभी चर्चा जारी है, अभी कोई कुछ तय नहीं है, लेकिन दोनों लीडरों का ये मत है कि हम दोनों साथ साथ अफ्रीका में काम करें। जहां तक जाकिर नाइक की बात है, जी हाँ, प्रधानमंत्री ने इस बात को उठाई है और हम दोनों पक्ष ने यह तय किया है कि हमारे अधिकारी इस पे संपर्क बनाए रखेंगे और हमारे लिए महत्वपूर्ण विषय है।
Thank you very much. We have another engagement. Thank you all for joining.
So that was Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale briefing the press in Vladivostok. As we all know that some important bilaterals have taken place between the Indian Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of Japan Shinzo Abe, and the Prime Minister of Malaysia Mahathir Mohamad, along with the Mongolian President. So these were three important bilaterals that have taken place, and one important message that India has managed to send out to Pakistan from Russia is on the issue of terrorism, where the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been backed by the Prime Minister of Malaysia and the Japanese Prime Minister as well on the issue of terrorism. So there's another clear-cut message that has been sent out to Pakistan, especially after yesterday when Russia maintained its stance and continued to back India. Apart from this, Malaysia has also spoken about the issue of Zakir Mohammed, where Zakir Naik they've said that the Indian and Malaysian authorities will continue to remain in touch, and that it's an important issue for both the countries. So this was also one of the important topics that was touched upon. Now, WION World is One's political editor Kartikesh Sharma joins us from the venue of the Eastern Economic Forum in Russia. He's been closely tracking all those details. Let's quickly go across to Kartikesh, who's currently joining me live from Vladivostok. Let's go across to Kartikesh. Kartikesh, what are the key takeaways from the summit so far?
I think the biggest takeaway of the trip has been that the Prime Minister has been able to create a consensus between Russia, which is permanent member of the Security Council, and India on the issue of Kashmir. He mentioned it and he thanked President Putin, and he said that both the countries are of the same opinion that there cannot be any outside interference in the internal matters of the country. Now that's a strong support which India has got from Russia, which means that it is a buffer in the United Nations. You know, the Pakistan tried its best to rake it up in UN, but nothing much happened. But the fact that the Prime Minister has somehow been, he has been able to take Putin on board on this is a great achievement. Secondly, I would say the Prime Minister is very happy that there are commercial agreements of private enterprises which outnumber those signed by the state governments.
Kartikesh, tell us more about the MOUs that were signed between India and Russia, and how will they benefit both the nations?
Steps which the Prime Minister even took on the energy issues and other MOUs which have been signed by the state government, they are very good. It is going to create great investment opportunities for Indians, mobility for people, for them to come and work here. Russians will get the value addition in terms of manufacturing skills, and for India it means better pay, better salaries, and more exposure of our own people to the world outside.
All right, Kartikesh, thank you so much for bringing us all those details. Kartikesh is the one tracking all those developments, so do stay tuned to World is One for a comprehensive coverage of the Eastern Economic Forum. It is day 2 for the Indian Prime Minister. And so Prime Minister Modi once again has bolstered international support on the issue of Kashmir. Let's also ask Kartikesh, how will it deter Pakistan? Let's get you more on this.
He has countered Pakistan without taking the name of Pakistan. You see, the fact that when the Prime Minister used the word internal affair, no outside interference, and he got this endorsement from Putin also, is to give the message that Pakistan cannot use international forums for propaganda or to use them against India. not use that word, but the fact that he has been able to do it apart from the main aim of the summit. The main aim of the summit was energy, diversification of energy, the people-to-people contact, ability of Indians to come to Russia, for them to work here. He has done all the work which was supposed to be done, but still was able to send a larger message to Pakistan that the world community, top world leaders are with India on this, barring one all-weather friend of Pakistan, which is China.
All right, that was Kartikeya Sharma joining us from Vladivostok with all the latest. Now, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has a packed schedule on day 2 in Russia. Prime Minister Modi is attending the Eastern Economic Forum. He met with his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe, and he also met Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad just a while ago. The Indian Prime Minister also held talks with the President of Mongolia. The Indian Prime Minister will visit the India Business Pavilion in just a short while from now at 9:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time before attending the working lunch of leaders. This will be followed by the plenary session of the 5th Eastern Economic Forum. Bilateral talks aside, the Indian Prime Minister will conclude his Russia visit with lighter engagements. He will be attending a judo tournament at 3 p.m. IST before departing for Delhi at 4:40 p.m. IST.